their daily dress. And that ritual is not present in awareness through movement classes. It's present in a lot of health industry classes. It's present in martial arts, and it's present in a number of things, but in awareness through movement, we don't get dressed up in any special garb. If anything, if no one's ever come to a class before, most of us would say, could you please wear something that allows you to move freely? And that's about it. And whatever you come in with, you go out with. That is a really particular point of view, which Feldenkrais discovered after years of doing functional integration, working with people, semi-de-dressed, just in their underwear. Yes, he worked with people in their underwear to start with, because they wanted to see stuff. And then he started to observe this phenomena that as people were putting on their clothes, resuming their everyday identity from being a person in this environment to making that transition to a new beginning in the outworld, they'd be changing in front of his eyes. What they were previously free to do would be disappearing as they're putting on their clothes. And so he thought to himself, my God, this is something important. I won't undress people anymore. I will work with people in the clothes that they come with, so that there is a sense of the feel of the clothes on them is a constancy that they carry through the lesson with them, and so that doesn't necessarily change them as they re-robe into their clothing. And I thought, yeah, that's a pretty clever idea. Yeah. So now that Ruth is back in her Feldenkrais persona, I guess she can lead you through a Feldenkrais exercise, right? And yeah, off you go.
Okay, so what we're now going to do is go back to what we did, I think it was earlier this week, of lifting the knee, but looking at more at how you organize yourself in doing it. Because I found Aikido invaluable in my own organization doing FI. So if I show you, does someone want to just lie down? I can do it on cat. And if you bend your knees up. Okay. Now, I think when I was watching people last week, there were a variety of things going on. And you always have to think in FI, everyone's a different shape and size. So you've got to work out, in a sense, what's best for yourself. But to me, there's a few principles. So if I'm wanting to lift cat's knee, the direction is this way. So if I'm coming up here, my center is going across the body. And if I think of my hara in this line, that's where I'm emitting force in the line that I'm wanting to do the lift. So given that in mind, I would start down here. And I find a hold, which is below the kneecap. And again, I'm thinking, I'd say more because of my Aikido, that my arms are relatively straight and I'm reaching. But then, as we were discussing earlier as well, there's this thing of a preparatory movement. So if I hold my breath or breathe into here, oh, that's going to be hard to do. But if I breathe into my abdomen, or it's not good languaging, but if I think down into my hara, and I think I do it unwittingly, but if I sort of expand it, and then as I breathe out, and depending how far I want to go, I can come onto my knees. Does that give you an idea? So the first thing is you line yourself up as I am, by the foot of the person. Your hands are I've got my hands on either side of cat's knee, and my thumbs are in this position underneath the kneecap. My arms are relatively straight. But again, feel this, cat. If I'm really heavy in my hands, what does that do to you? Yeah. So you've got to think that how I don't want a fluffy contact. I need to be supportive, but not hard in my hands. And this is such a great opportunity for you all to give each other feedback. So, Kat can tell me now the difference if my hands are just in contact and then I'm thinking of my hara and moving my body forward. How's that, Kat? Okay. So find a partner and give it a go. And use the person on the floor to give you feedback, because they can say your hands need to be a bit in a different position or whatever. Okay. So So if you haven't swapped over, swap over. And one point came up from Jane that also think of how you organize when you're returning the person's leg to the floor. I'm saying just when you're returning the leg to the floor, that you're still able to support the leg so the flow of movement's constant. Oh, good. So now we're going to finish off, but before we do you want to gather around here, and I'm just going to give you a little demo on Sue. Is that all right, Sue? Okay. No. Okay. So come on over. Maybe there's some carryover. Okay. So just before we go to lunch, gather around here. I'm just going to show you, well, two things. One about lowering the leg, and the other one, you know how I was saying when we were doing with Aikido, how it's the path of least resistance. So what you're looking for in an FI sense, if you feel a resistance, how can I bypass it? Not through force, but how can I find another pathway around it? So, you know, and if you think Feldenkrais, he thought in forces, being a mechanic and judo person. So if I'm here, now Alison asked me to come over because Sue was assisting her at a point in the movement. Okay, so if I'm here and I'm organising myself well, what was happening was that when I did it the first time with Sue, I came up, and then at about there, I feel a resistance. Would you agree, Sue? So then I come back down. And if I continued, what happened was, I think, Sue, you wanted to take over? Or maybe it's changed a bit. You're just too quick a learner. But we'll pretend. Okay. So then, I don't know if you noticed, so there, I'm coming up. And say, at this point, I feel the resistance. Instead of forcing through it, I just feel my way around it. And then I can continue up. And going down as well, I'm maintaining my organisation. I'm reaching out. I'm still, I think for me, it's unconsciously thinking of my hara. My back is straight, but I move backward. I don't think my contact's changing with your knee, Sue. And I'm lowering the leg down carefully. Yeah. So I think I'll just leave you with those thoughts of, you're supporting the person in both directions. And instead of going through something, if the force is hard this way, think, oh, maybe if I go a little bit here, I can get rounded and then continue. You can. I'll see if I can answer it, Emma. No, I don't think so. Yep. Coming down, more difficult to support the leg.
Well, no, I mean, it felt different to how it was.
How did it feel to you, Sue? Was there much difference in the direction of the movement, how it felt? No.
Well, maybe not when you're doing it. I mean, we're learning.
But I think it's a thing. Okay. But if I'm using my arms, it'll make a difference. Okay, so if I'm not thinking here, and if I'm thinking here, and then I'm thinking, oh, God, this is heavy coming down. I'm exaggerating, but if I'm working more in my arms, but my arms aren't doing the work. I'm doing the work here. And if you look my back, it's staying aligned, it's staying long. So I'm just
But wouldn't it be true to say that the leg has to get heavier when it's coming down because of gravity? So you have to change the organisation of yourself? No, I don't know. Like I'm throwing it out there.
That's a question.
Well, gravity pulls. But the gravity makes it fit.
Whether you're going up or down, it's still
In terms of resistance on we're going up, the experience of the gravity, the mover of the leg has a different experience of the sense of gravity. I know gravity is this, because what is happening is that the engagement of the postural muscles or the leg or the whatever the things, they activate differently on the way down, and so that's why it can feel different. So
yes, because she's a person. Sure. Yeah, because Sue's a person, Ruth's a person. They both have subjective experiences. And the way that they generate their movement or maintain their acture in the field of gravity is entirely dependent on how they activate their neuromuscular system. So therefore, the experience will be different, but the physics is what it is. The mass is the same, but the experience is different. Well, most likely it is different.
When you're supporting the leg on the way down, you're using different muscles, which might be requires supporting the leg on the way down. You're engaging different. The teacher is engaging different muscles, and so that's where the experience might be easier or more difficult.
Absolutely.
And well, more muscles to control that. In fact, it might be in total more muscular engagement to control that coming down, control that weight, the bringing down of that weight in a controlled way.
Absolutely.
Is that something to do with inertia or?
Well, I can have, if I pretend to be a waiter, and on this, if I pretend to be a waiter, and on this hand I have the experiential platter. This is all the goodies that have to do with what you feel. And in this hand, I have the physics platter. This is the world according to physics. Sometimes those platters might share the same little hors d'oeuvre, but mostly they're very different ways of describing the world. We can describe the world from our experience, or we can try to describe the world in this abstract way that physics describes it. So the two might overlap somewhat, but they are, and this is what you're thinking about, they might coincide, but really they are two different ways of talking about things. And if you can keep them logically distinct, your confusion disappears. That's really important. Actually, that's a context for the language, yes? That's the context for our language discussion yesterday. Yeah? To not confuse the words with what the words refer to. And very often, this is what people do. They take the words or the physics idea, and then they mix it up with what's experienced. So when Ruth gives a report, she's giving a report on her experience. If we were to do a biomechanical analysis, what you would see is Ruth's vector of force changing moment by moment, redirecting, and your leg moving in different trajectories at every different point in time. But the mass of Ruth and the mass of Sue is exactly the same. Oh. Okay.
This isn't the physics experience, but just wanted to share because Jane and I were, when the leg was coming down, the quality of the leg coming down was like, I've felt it moving it and experienced it like it was kind of going like this. And when Ruth looked at what we were doing, it was like the arms were straight going up, but coming back when the arms were bent, there wasn't that same quality of movement coming down because it was like Ruth was saying, using more that upper body to try and do it rather than keeping that static and just using the trunk to support the leg to come down.
Yep.
You asked about martial arts and differences in martial arts. Mm-hmm. Well, if you bring it back to Chinese martial arts, the Kung Fu masters would look for some sort of proof that they were a student who really wanted to do it. And one of the proofs was that you had to stand, I can't do it anymore, but in horse stance. And they would make you stand in horse stance for a very, very long time. Now, that is a form of suffering that's kind of weird. But as a form of training, given that gravity is pulling you down, and you're trying to find a bodily organization that negates those forces as much as you can you see that they're looking for students who can not just muscularly be strong, but already prove that they have a kind of dealing with their organization to be able to be here. Yeah. So it continuously boils down to this Feldy-babble word that we have that will eventually end at the lexicon online, which is organization. Ruth is showing you an amazingly good organization that she's learnt about from another method and also through her practice that enables her to do what she does. Oh, sorry. One more.
One more. Just to bring it back to the context of Feldenkrais, and why do we do this anyway? My interpretation is that what we want to do is give the pupil an experience of being able to move easily and lightly, rather than an experience of me feeling the weight of her leg. Because her nervous system can do something with the information of, oh, this movement can be light, and reorganise for her to recreate it for herself, hopefully. Come away from the speaker and I'll give you this.
So, because when I was talking before, I was talking about me being so lying on the ground and feeling the sense of weight of the leg pulling down. So if that is the case, because what we're aiming for, as you said, is ease of movement, does that mean that that particular pathway was not the easiest pathway for me then? Because I could feel my musculature fighting, like almost like to the point where I thought, oh, I'll just put my head over here a bit while the leg goes down, that if there was another Feldenkrais practitioner qualified doing it, that they might have been playing around to find a different pathway. Because, I mean, I was fighting that in terms of my own organisation, and that's what I was sensing that I said was gravity.
So whether it was your pathway or whether it was the practitioner's pathway that was not organised optimally, I don't know, but could have been either.
lunch, and this is where this is where the judo metaphor applies. Yeah? One system, another system, both operating at different ways and different moments of time, and somehow, through that little dance, one person experiences something, the other person experiences something, and the better you become in that craft, the more you can shape the experience to promote exactly what Jenny's talking about. How can the person experience something that they cannot generate themselves? Yet. Now generate the experience of mildly filling your tummy with food.
Until 1:45?
Yeah, until 1:45. Graves.